I'm Vic. I'm the creator of this project, See Us As We Are. I use they, them pronouns. What can I say about myself? I'm queer, I'm non binary, I do art. And I say that in that way because I'm not specifically trained in any sort of background, but I like to create in whatever form feels like I need to communicate in. And that could be like dance, writing, performing, whatever form that takes. I embrace that. Like recently, I've been painting because emotions are strong and communication is hard sometimes. So, like, that is the form that my art is taking place in currently. Um, I'll pass it off to Michael.
Hi all, I'm Mikael Burke. I am the Associate Artistic Director here at About Face, and I also am the sort of mastermind curator, director behind KICKBACK as a whole collection of pieces and works. So I'm super excited that everybody's here to talk about and celebrate this fantastic piece that Vic created. Yeah, so I'll pass it back to Sojourner.
Hi, Sojourner, she, they. I am a ritual sacred space facilitator and a multidisciplinary artist, performer, installation creator, and I am happy to be here fielding this beautiful space tonight. So I just thought we might, just the three of us, we're going to move in and out of just having folks have questions and respond. But one thing that I thought we could do is to see us as we are, and we are something right now, to be documented and to be uplifted and celebrated. And so I'm wondering if Vic, Michael, and if we can just kind of reflect on like what's most resonant for you right now in your experience today. Like, what's who are you right now? What's so like what are there any thoughts that are kind of lingering throughout the day? Any sensations that are kind of creating your experience as a human in this moment?
I can start, I suppose. My experience today has been like peak introvert experience, I suppose. Because I teach and I direct for my like, and I work with About Face for my jobs, and so I spend a lot of my work time that's like outward facing and pretending like I'm an extrovert and expending all of that great extrovert energy. So today I was like, I'm gonna sit in my room with myself and just recharge. And so I'm feeling very recharged today, which is nice. Got some good TV watching, and now I get to be here with all of these lovely faces. So just feeling nice and rejuvenated as far as energy stores go, I suppose.
I think I'm in a similar space as that. I think I've been sort of, how would I put it? Like, I guess like gentle with myself because I'm a person that is like always on the go. I have something to do. I have like a list. I'm going to get through that list, and I like measure how I'm doing by how productive I've been. And I'm sure like a lot of us do that. And now I've been trying to shift to like, what do I have the space for the day, and not putting any like pressure on myself either way, whether or not I get some like two things done or I don't do anything at all. It's what I had space for the day, and that is enough. And so just honoring my space for what can happen in the day is where I'm at currently.
Beautiful. I
What
have
about you? Yeah.
yeah, I will have a secondary question and then I'll answer the question. So my question to both of you would be like, how would you document that? If you could document how you just shared that you are, how would you document it?
Mm.
That's a good one. I think, oh, do you have it?
You got it. You win.
I think I would document it through like, this is so silly, but like a lo-fi study beats chill like YouTube playlist, like a whole like hour long or live set of that. That's how that would be documented. And just me like maybe like journaling and reflecting to self. That's what that would look like.
Yeah, I think I have the thing that I would do to document it is like I feel like a good documentation of what today felt like would be building a pillow fort and inviting people to like come hang out in this pillow fort by yourself for a little while. But I think the actual documentation is just literally the cue that's like my Netflix history. Like, here are all the things you watched today, where it's just Netflix is silently judging me for my binging habits.
That's amazing.
Oh, wow. Yay. Let's see, feel like I have been like having someone who's a new relationship in my life in my space, and I like my alone space. And so my most like resonant feelings are just kind of navigating like, wow, I miss being by myself. And like, ooh, this person is like really amazing and like feels really good. And so how I would document that, I think maybe just like a list of like feelings from moment to moment, and just like anxious, sensual, irritated. You know?
The full range of emotions.
Yeah, for sure. Welcome, new people. We are
Hello.
hello. Yeah, we're chatting with Vic and Mikael here, and so I'm actually wanting to play another song, and then kind of talk about house music and queerness.
I'm game for that.
Mm-hmm.
So now that everybody's here, I mean, or more people might come, but let's just like listen and absorb. And I think one question that I would, let's just listen and absorb, and just like notice what your body feels like, what thoughts and images come up in your head, any memories that come up in your head. Just take note. Let me share my screen. Say
That was love
I
related.
love that. Yeah.
Good.
Yes, very that.
Yeah. I love that. I found that song today. I was just like, ooh.
Mm.
Vic, I wanna pose this question to you. So yeah, house music.
House music. So, in response to the framing questions you had set up for going into the song, whenever I hear like certain music or sounds, I just come up with like a scene from a movie or a show or a montage. And that's like the first thing that helps me to connect. And for this one, I just thought of like any movie where the main characters like they're going through and trying to like figure out something, and they just show different times and dates where they're like struggling until they become triumphant, and then they're like celebrating and they're so happy with themselves for having like gone through all of that and figured out what was needed. So that was playing through my head. Yes. Growing up, doing that. And it was just like also it's like meditative of like you have to remind yourself of all these things because sometimes it can get muddled in the mix of life, and like reminding yourself that you are a star is such a beautiful, it's so simple but it's like so beautiful, like you are a star, you're unique to you, and whatever you want out of life or desire or feel about yourself is important, you matter, like that sort of energy behind it are things that are like ringing true for me. And just like house music itself, I feel it's just an experiment, and like it's music that is meant to play and make you feel playful and energized from listening to it. I think is why I like vibe with house music so much. Besides the fact that it's original to Chicago and queer culture, it's just it's a beautiful example of how when you just like let go and let sounds and rhythms play and communicate with one another, you can come up with so many beautiful different sounds that work melodically. Like you wouldn't necessarily put them together, but with house, I feel like it questions that and finds a way for them to vibe with one another. Um, yeah, does that kind of question it? I mean, answer your question. I've kind of been all over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I asked a question. I just said house music. So yes. Michael, what kind of resonated with you in the song and house music? Question.
Yeah, it immediately, like as the first beats like started playing, the first that came into my, like this is a deep cut, so I apologize. But in the early 90s, there was a Sega Genesis game called Outrun that was like you were in a little red convertible, just driving through different landscapes, trying to beat the clock. And that's where I went first. And then that took me on a journey to like when I'm driving my own car, and that being one of the spaces where I feel like safest to just belt and sing and dance and do whatever, because I'm in my own car and fuck everybody else. So I feel like my journey through the song was just me singing really loudly and dancing in my car like no one's watching, even though they all probably are because I look ridiculous, but we're having a great time. And yeah, and I think like the thing that I love about house music is kind of exactly what Vic was saying, but just to me it's this music that I listen to that feels like its primary purpose is to move me before I know why I'm moving or like what I'm moving toward. It gets me to move. And then I figure it out along the way. And I feel like that's just a neat reminder of like, yeah, keep going, keep moving forward.
Yeah. It's like it's driving and it's repetitive, and just like affirmations need to be before they actually take root in your body and you start to actually embody them. It's like you need to hear it a trillion times.
Very bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, love myself. Yeah, love myself. Yeah, Whitney remix, real talk. um, so yeah, riffing off of that, Vic, did you have another thing to say?
I was gonna actually ask you how that resonated in your body, and then Uplift. A couple of folks had comments that Elizabeth, it reminded them of Mario Kart, and then Andrea, did I say your name correctly? Okay. Feel free to correct me if you'd like. It brought sunshine to them on a snowy day, and Frankie Knuckles playing at South Shore Cultural Center on a snowy January evening years ago. You saw them? I'm so sorry. Now I'm like, I'm so jealous. Can you talk? Yes, please.
Yeah, that was, and Megan maybe I think was there as well. So back in the day, LCCP used to have this party at South Shore Cultural Center. We were really lucky enough to bring Frankie in back in the day. It was an amazing, that building full of queer folk on a snowy day. There was nothing like it. And having him bring his love and bring it had all that. I was really lucky as a kid in Detroit going to parties at people's houses where folks were making their own music I'm old, back in the 80s. And they really reminded me of those close corners in people's homes as people are just playing and making music and dancing really hard. And it felt like that that night to me. I just had a lot of pure energy and all the, and as freaking cold as it was outside, it was so full of love and warmth, and he was such a beautiful soul. So that's it. For some reason, the sunshine, that song though, what you just played though, just brought in all the sun that I felt today, right? It brought that and just brought me to that memory, because it's one of those nights tonight. So there you go.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, sweet. That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, house music to me, we were mentioning before, I was talking about before the session started that I used to go to Boom Boom Room at the Green Dolphin every Monday night, where it was house night and it was queer night. And I mean, in Chicago, it was like the freest place I have ever experienced, and the queerest nightlife scene I have ever experienced. And the freedom there, people just dressed. They dressed and they danced, and it was just like, it was just a little piece of freedom that I have not experienced anywhere else besides when that was happening every Monday. And if I felt free to like go there and explore what it means to be queer and what it means to like show up like aesthetically, and specifically in that song, Don't Ever Be Afraid to Love Yourself. And I just think that's really profound, because I think that's very real, a fear that happens when we are like confronted and like when we're asking ourselves, like, what does it mean to love myself? And that like that fear that we have to move through to get there, yeah. So my kind of next question, I think that like everything informs us around like what it is that we need as humans, like it could be like our hat, like I'm looking at your hat, Vic, that's why I'm saying hat, but like you hold your hat, you can be like, I really like this hat. What does that mean about me? I really like these earrings, this water bottle, this ring. Like, what is that? Like, what information does that give me? So I think with house music, I'm curious about thinking about like, how do we know, what does this say about like our pleasure as queer people, as Black LGBTQ people? And what does it say about like what nourishes us?
Wow. That is First of all, profound question. I can start to speak to it, but I'm not sure. Actually, I'm going to take a moment to sit with it. I'm going to take a moment to sit with it. What does that say about us?
Just uplifting the chat. Andrea, there's such magic when we dress, when we really show up with big queer aesthetic. Not all clubs bring that. It's true.
I just wanted to lift up what you were saying. I'm sorry, because it was such a thing, right? Like there's not all those many places where folks really show up really fully there. Sometimes the dressing down becomes the thing, and then we act as if the dressing up isn't something that is part of who we are. It's actually I feel like it's part of our ancestors' work and beauty that they bring. And so I really heard that and made me think of beautiful places where folks have done that. But we often don't always do that, right? And that's an interesting thing.
I think part of my answer to that, thank you for adding that tidbit. That was very beautiful. I think part of my answer lies in Elizabeth's reflection of, they said, I worry if I embrace myself fully that it will all be a lie somehow. It's a long journey. Thank you for sharing that vulnerability. And I feel like house music is allowing the freedom of that exploring. And what it says about queers is that we're willing to explore. Like whether or not we stick with a thing that we find, we're willing to explore and stumble our way through until we pivot and find something else that works for us. And so like, there is no lie in that journey because you gave yourself the space and grace to like grow and experiment in what felt good in that moment. And it feels like with house music, it's like it was all about, because I was there when it was being created, but it was all about what feels good in that moment and the willingness to try something that literally was not ever done before, and not critiquing it. I felt like, and I'm sure they had feelings. Frankie Knuckles had feelings about his work and whatnot, but it feels like they leaned very heavily into what could be and not critiquing it as it was happening. And I think that speaks to queers and their relationship to themselves and creating themselves anew or finding themselves, however you want to phrase it. But the freedom and space to explore is what is like resonating heavily with me.
Yeah, I echo that. That sense of like this music, these spaces being spaces where, you know, where we weren't subjected to all of the other outside perspectives that we were subjected to when we're going to work or when we're, you know, moving through regular spaces, particularly when this, you know, when this music was really taking off. Like it's very different in 2020 than it was back then as far as how we get to move through space.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that really resonates with me is just like this sort of oasis of like, no, you can bring your full self here and it can be as exuberant and full as this music is. There's no need to contain or to hide or anything like that. It just feels like an invitation to always be your fullest self, whatever that is today. And that seems really awesome. You know, we still need reminders of that.
Yeah. And the affirmation of however it presents itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think about like just the nature of the music being really repetitive. Kind of coming back to that. It's just like, you know, it's just over and over again. You just hear, you know, don't be afraid to love yourself, you know, be carefree. And also the nature of the music being like 8 minutes long. Yeah, like 10 minutes long is like you have to actually, it's a meditation. Like you have to, there's levels where you are like you just get into it and then you sink into it and then you sink into it more, and then the nature of just like, you know, blending into the next song seamlessly.
Yeah.
And all of it has this like repetitive kind of insistence on self-love, on love of like feeling uplifted. And so to me, like what that says about nourishment and being queer and being Black is that like there's something that's repeating. It's like a heartbeat, and that we're really listening to that. And we're just like, I don't care what y'all are trying to do. I'm gonna love myself. I'm gonna love myself. I'm gonna love myself. You know, it's just like, I think it really feels like a deep listening to the heart, you know.
Mhm.
And also this discovering of something new in that repetitiveness, like you find a new message from the same phrase that you've heard for that 10 to 15 minute long song.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's also a piece of it as well.
Cool. I'm wondering, I actually want to play this little game. I think Vic, you've played this before in one of my other spaces, but it's just called I Can Talk About.
Oh.
So, so if we can kind of go around, let's see, what did I want to do? Yeah, so what can we, how, let's do like the question of documenting our experiences as queer folks, as LGBTQ folks, as Black folks. Think about like your life and what you would document. And we're just going to go around, and Vic and Michael will say, I could talk about, and you're just going to say one sentence, one thing. We'll just go in a circle, and other folks kind of listen to like what piques your interest. For instance, I'll say, I could talk about my inner voices. I could talk about, I'll just do a few myself so you can get the hang of it. I could talk about my relationship with my mom. I could talk about cold walks outside. So documentation, your life, being Black, being queer.
I could talk about looking in the mirror and the reflection, not always reflecting what I see inside.
I could talk about feeling as if I don't have something worthy to say.
I could talk about my mother expecting me to really know how to cook by now.
I can talk about the changing relationship I have to my family as I grow in age in my life.
I can talk about living back at home for the first time in 15 years.
I could talk about virtual relationships with queer community, kindred.
I can talk about the beauty in getting to choose your family and them choosing you back.
I could talk about family, like family lasting over great time and great distance?
I could talk about outfits in the wintertime.
I can talk about fall because layers are when I level up.
I could talk about summer and heat, because I like wearing short shorts. It's the best time.
Okay, so we'll pause there, and if anyone had something that they heard that you would like to hear more about, you could say, "Hey Vic, I would like to hear more about da 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 da," or "Sojourner, I would like to hear more about da 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 da." Or if Vic and Michael, you'd like to talk more about one particular thing.
I'm going to leave room for folks to choose what resonated.
Michael, I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit more about living at home for the first time in 15 years. And just, I'm curious if or how your queerness plays into that, or age. I got a taste of it being home with my parents for like almost 2 months in the past couple of months. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot.
I think the jumping off point is that the experience that I was expecting is very different from the experience I've had and received. I haven't lived here, lived with my mother since I was 18, because I went to college, and then I was like, great, I'm out of here. I don't need to, I don't need to go back. I'll come back and visit, but like 3 days max. And so this was a really big change that I was very nervous about, because we have a good relationship, but not exactly a super close or deep relationship all the time. So it's actually been, so I was expecting it to be really awkward and strange, because I'm like, we actually don't know each other at all, really. And what's that going to be like? Because we're not exactly interested in certain aspects. But I got here and I sort of realized that like a lot of that was me and my own anxiety, and not the actual truth of the situation. And it's been really great getting to getting to know my mom as an adult in a more substantial way. Certainly, I'm a big introvert, and I like living alone. So there are days when I'm like, I just want to go back to Chicago where I'm by myself. But I am really, really grateful for the time that I've had, because I don't think had everything with the pandemic happened, that I ever would have given myself this opportunity. And I'm very, very grateful that I did.
Does anyone else have anything that they remember that they'd like to hear more about? The cold walks. I'm not a fan of walking in the cold, so I think. And then and then I can't stand being in the house any longer. I just have to take a walk. I just have to. And then, you layer up and it's like not that bad. It's like, oh, okay, this is actually great. Walking in the cold is just it's like next level for me as far as connecting to nature. I'm a big, you know, gotta connect to nature, like get your time outside. But like something about the winter time, I'm just like, except for in the winter time. And I think that's slowly starting to shift. And I think like literally just 2 years ago, I finally got boots that keep my feet warm in the winter time. You know, like I have just been living here and being in the winter and not even realizing that, you know, my whole life could be 10 times better just by having the right boots on. And so it just changed everything. And I'm like, oh, this is like outside winter life is a possibility. You just have to dress right, you know? So I went outside last night. It was a beautiful sliced moon. It was gorgeous. It felt delicious on my skin. Yeah, the cold walks.
I love that.
Walking night after a big snow, it sounds and feels mighty special. Totally.
Mm-hmm. So quiet after it snows
It
at
is.
night. It's my favorite.
I'm curious to hear more about your relationships with clothes and possible self-censorship over the years. Was that to anyone in particular?
Oh yeah, if you'd like to clarify. Aaron.
Both of you. Either is fine.
Oh yeah.
I'll let you start, Vic.
Thank you. I have so much to say, and it's all falling away. But the way that I was raised is very much, I feel like a lot of us within the gender binary. And I wasn't really like paying attention to the fact that like I didn't like how these like women's quote unquote clothes feel on my body. I would see it as like, oh, I don't like this outfit. Oh, I don't like this thing. And over the years, I've seen that these things were forced on me, or like I was trying to fit a role that just didn't feel right. Like prom, I went all out. I was like, I'm gonna be the best type of girl, woman that they'd ever see. And I got like this weave, my hair was flowing, and I wore this like hot pink Barbie dress that was like a halter, and it was like free flowing, and I was like, I'm so pretty and this is what it means to be a woman. And like, did I feel good in that moment? Sure. But ultimately that's like the opposite of how I present. Like it doesn't feel, and I hesitate and use the word natural or normal, but like those are the words that are coming to mind. And the way that, let me look at your exact words. Self-censorship. Got it. Anytime that I have censored the way that I want to dress, or the clothing that I like gravitate towards, has always been out of fear of how I would be received. And I have a very outspoken family, and they see a thing, they'll make an observation, and it might not, it'll sting a little bit, but they just see it as like, you are acting out of the ordinary of you. Why is that? And it's just like this uncomfortable thing. And so to avoid that, I would try to gravitate towards what I'm supposed to be in. And I think I kind of broke out of that in college. It's when I started to experiment with the way I wanted to dress, and like the more and more I choose what feels good, the better I look. And I don't know if there's science to it, but anytime I'm dressed in a way that is comfortable to how I feel, it's the best that I've ever felt, looked, the more compliments I get. And so like now I'm like rambling a little bit, but now I center comfort, and whether that is more femme or more masc, that matters less to me. I try to center comfort in the way that I dress. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like the anecdote I always give is that like I didn't actually know how to dress myself until I was in my mid-20s. And I remember I was in an internship, and big old deal, and working at this theater at the, that's and so I remember going, because I didn't have a bunch of money, so I went to the thrift store to buy all of my work clothes to go work at this theater, and I bought this whole wardrobe of like office wear and suits and trousers and all these things that I thought are what I had to wear to do this job properly. And I'll never forget the moment where I was like, I can't do this. I just have to do the thing that just like you were saying, Vic, I just have to wear something that feels good. And suddenly when I was like, wait a minute, that's something I can do. I can feel good in what I'm wearing and also still be hitting the dress code that I need to hit. I was like, it just sort of opened my eyes, and suddenly I was like, oh no, I actually like clothes. And so it's funny if you were to go through, I don't recommend it, but if you were to go through my Facebook photos from the beginning of time, you'd see a pretty drastic shift in how I dressed in my early 20s versus my later 20s, because I just started picking things I liked, and the rest is history. I don't know. And now I just love dressing up or dressing down or anything. In short shorts. Always the short shorts. Yeah. Or as a friend of mine will sometimes refer to them as chanties. Jean panties.
I love it. There's a question here from Elizabeth, bringing up seasons. Is there a season in particular that resonates with any of you most? What season brings comfort and what season brings challenges?
I can start there, because I've had and continue to have similar experiences to what Sojourner was describing. Winter is usually the season that I run from and I hide from. It took me years I think I was in Chicago for almost 3 years before I learned that a coat that you buy at H&M is not a real coat. But they look so good, but they're useless. And when I first put on a real coat, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is what winter's like? Oh, this is a game changer. Big, huge deal. So winter's always been challenging, but I'm getting better at it. But summer is when I thrive. I love when it's hot AF and you open your car door and it's like stepping into an oven. I love that feeling. I don't know why, but I just like the heat. Something about it.
I too hate the winter. My last name is Winter. I've had so many jokes about that. I hate the winter. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. The first snow I've been in Chicago my entire life. The first snow every season, I feel disrespected. I don't know what it is, but I'm like, how dare you? How dare you? But I hate winter. I strongly dislike winter, and the in-between, the end of winter and the beginning of spring is the ugliest time in Chicago, and it's just miserable. I don't know how, it's just a miserable time. And I'm just never really in a good mood. and I'm okay with that. And I'm finding ways in which I can I don't know, quell those feelings, but those are the worst times. And then I think my favorite and the time that I find the most comfort is towards the end of the summer and the beginning of fall, when it starts to cool down. I really love that in between time, because I am also miserable if it's too hot, but that end of summer, beginning of fall into fall, that's my favorite time. And that's with clothing, weather. And I also feel the feeling and energy of Chicago is vibrant in a very specific way during those times, and I don't know how else to speak to it, but it's very beautiful. And there's an intimate time of Chicago that I really enjoy during that season.
Yeah, I love the fall. The fall is my birthday. And it's also just like the most beautiful to me. I think with the leaves changing, it's just the most beautiful. And there's a feeling in the air of change, of letting go, of getting a little, it's like kind of warm but kind of cool, and you get to play with the layers. And um it's the season that most feels like change to me. Things are changing and shifting, and that in between place to me is like so magical.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Vic, about that end of winter, beginning of springtime, that like the thing that grinds my gears the most about it is the constant teasing where Mother Nature's like, spring is coming. I'm gonna warm up for a couple days. Just kidding.
Snow.
We're gonna snow again. Like
Yeah.
that. I'm just like that's the thing that I lose patience so fast.
Or like the days where it splits temperatures, it's like really cold majority. Well, it's like warmer during the day, and then as soon as the sun goes down, it's
Right.
freezing.
How do I dress for this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So confusing. Beautiful. Well, we have a few minutes left, and I'm just wondering if we kind of want to open it up, and if folks have questions in particular about the beautiful piece that are lingering, that you just want to put on the table here. If you watched See Us As We Are, and just want to pose some questions. Is everything okay? Vic?
My neighbors have a newborn, and I hear like silly, playful, like, I hear that in the background. So I was like, that's what I heard. But everything is all right.
Good, good. Well, anybody? Because I could ask another thing. So I'm just kind of just like, this is Vic. What influenced you to stay sitting down for your chores?
Can we clarify that a little bit? Oh.
I'm like going through the movie, like
I was like, growing up, I was not sitting down for chores. I was not sitting down. Choreo. Sorry, I'm like remembering what I was doing. Oh, I think it was like half technical and half like grounding. Like, to be completely honest, is like what I could capture within the frame of the camera, and then also there was like it felt like a certain like grounding. I wanted the piece to sort of like build and get bigger and bigger, and I wanted it to tell the story of like what it looks like to be constricted in what you're able to share, and how that transforms once you take off those restrictions and let people like literally tell their stories as they come from them, without the lens of like what's deemed acceptable, or what people want to see. So like in my storytelling for the movement, the ground movement was more of like that restricted, I'm not able to share in the way that I want, and then like build into the free flowing movement. So it was like half technical and then storytelling as well. Thank you for that question.
Cool. So this has all been a documentation, and it's all been a collecting of stories as we are, today. And yeah, yeah, like what, just kind of on in a closing, something to close and to think about, what's kind of like resonating and lingering with us today and right now about how we might gather our stories as Black, queer, LGBTQ folks, on a day-to-day basis, like in a practical way. In a practical way, how can we on a day-to-day basis document, and why is that important? You know, because I mean, you had, you know, film, and you had like, you did this journey with different people, but like, you know, even without all of that, why do it? You know, why document our stories? These little things about wintertime, these little things about, you know, why we love house music, why and how can we do that? Mm.
All the little pieces come together to tell the greater story and create a greater image. Like, why share all these smaller things? Like, why ask all these different artists um, different entry point questions into their lives? It's because it all comes together to share like a greater image. And I feel like from like what I've seen, um, what is elevated, uplifted are stories that like zone in on the trauma or zone in on a literal medical transition or zone in on smaller pieces of the individual and blowing that up to be and make that the story of the individual. And for me, it was important to like display, even though I didn't have enough time and space to do that, but like this was my attempt to display all those little moments and why they matter, to add up to show the whole, because each one of those individual artists are amazing in their own right and do so many different things within um, lives. And so I just wanted to simply to honor that. It was like my goal, honoring them as they are, and sharing the message that that is more than enough. Like that is enough, and it's beautiful. And like, how do we uplift them in the ways that they want it to be? They want to be uplifted, not what you find interesting, not what you are curious about. Like those were the things that were important to me. Those were the whys. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing that came up for me just now is circling back to something you said earlier, Sojourner, about like repeating to ourselves, like, you know, you're great, I love you, you're awesome, do the damn thing, you know, and then like telling ourselves those mantras and things like that. Because I feel like it's very easy to forget that, like, just by the sheer fact that you are standing upon this earth and breathing means like that you are of value and of importance, and so like, you know, it is worth, we're all worth documenting ourselves because we're here. And you know, I saw this, I talked about this on the last one of these too, so some of you, this may be a repeat, but there's a really fantastic TED Talk about the danger of a single story, where a woman from Nigeria kind of talks through her experience with single stories, like everybody in Africa is poor, all, you know, all Black people like fried chicken, like these incredibly very narrow stories and stereotypes that we tend to cling to, that the media tends to cling to. And by continuing to live our fullest selves and document our fullest selves and tell stories about our fullest selves that are not exactly as Vic was saying, these sort of pick and choose moments, we get much more holistic and well-rounded understandings of one another and ourselves, which I think is really, you know, really cool. It's like, wouldn't we all rather see a fully 3 and 4 dimensional image of someone than a 2-dimensional, you know, sketch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Instead of the distorted image. Yeah. And I just want to say, like, I think, I lead a bunch of spaces and I'm encouraging people to, write stuff down. And I think, the selfie and the documentation with the phones, like we just have so much, to be able to document our lives with, and we can. And like, I think that we should, whether it's just drawing a picture, like taking down your inner stories and really making kind of an archive of like who you are, because otherwise, you know, it, we'll just get that distorted image, So yeah, I'm wondering if we can just do like a one-word checkout from everybody here in this group.
Audience first.
Thoughts and feelings in one word.
Appreciation.
You can type it and I can read it for you.
Yeah, we're just going popcorn style.
Grateful.
Aaron says comfort.
Rejuvenation.
Love.
About Face, aka Logan, says calm.
Peaceful.
Joy.
Creative joy. Thank you all. This has been so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you for having me here to talk with you all. This has been very beautiful, and I appreciate everybody taking time out of their days to listen to us talk about this work.
Yeah. Thank you both, and thank you, Sojourner, for facilitating such a wonderful, beautiful and rejuvenating experience.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Anytime. Cool, y'all. Well, have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank y'all.
A tutoler.